Hello everybody, Andy here again. Well, this is a follow-on from the book review I've just done about this particular book. It's called Socialnomics by a guy called Erik Qualman. And if you read them, I'll post this as a response to that down there as well. So it does sort of follow on, but it leads on from a different way. A few points that I've noticed recently, because I'm interested in this whole social media idea. I'm interested in the way that we interact here on YouTube or on the internet generally through Facebook, Twitter and all those different sites that we've got. And we all use different ones, don't we? How it's changed our lives, it's certainly changed my life. Obviously this is topics that I've spoken about before in the past, about how it's changed my life and meeting new people, but the possibilities that there are for this as well. Now, in that particular book, I did happen to mention the fact that it was quite a US-centric book, which isn't a criticism, it's just the way that it was written from an American point of view. And one thing I've noticed, because I have been doing a bit of research about this recently and sort of coming up with some ideas myself, I'm thinking it would be quite nice to move into that sort of field in some sort of way. So I've done some research, because if you're on here, if you're watching these my videos or anybody else's videos, you're using social media at the moment, you realise what it's done for your life and how it's changed your life, you are pretty well an expert in this type of thing. You are an expert in this particular field, because there are a lot of people out there still, and that's one of the points of that particular book, is that so many people don't get it, as we say. Now, you probably do get it. That's why you're watching a vlogger as opposed to watching a few kittens playing around on one of the featured videos or one of the ones on the main page. You've taken the trouble to scratch below the surface of this site and find out what else is going on there. Now, not many people have done that, and you can use this analogy from lots of the other different sites. The way that people use sites, Twitter for example, is used in a different way once you get into it than it is for other people. That's why people don't understand it, or even some for the Facebooks, any of these particular sites, they don't understand, they don't get it as such, because they haven't explored it, they haven't become immersed in it, or they haven't been exposed to what's really there if you do get involved. And I think, so if people are probably asking you, I'm sure you can think of times when you've been at work or in your family and you're trying to explain this to people and they just don't understand. The vast majority don't understand, but you do, and you might find it frustrating. Now, as I said, this is a very much a US book, and I've say through the research that I've done and looking at particular websites and Twitter feeds, etc., from different people, most of them, if not the vast majority of the articles that I read, are based or sourced from or about the United States. That's great. They're ahead of the game in that respect, that there's far more people over there who are talking about this, who are using it, thinking about the possibilities and taking it forward, than there are in other parts of the world, as far as I know. If you've got examples of other places, especially in Britain or in Europe generally, I'd certainly love to know, because I'd love to get more involved in this and get a bit more know a bit more about it, shall we say, and explore it even more and the possibilities, because I have lots of ideas about it myself, but find it increasingly frustrating that it's all dealt with over there. That's the way it goes. Another issue with that particular book, once again, and also the vast majority of the articles, etc., that I read about this, and even the sites themselves, they are set up to talk about business. They are set up to talk about the business opportunities that social media and social networking bring. And you can probably think of that if you're on Twitter. A lot of the people that start following you because you put certain names in your particular Twitter feed about whatever you put up there, you can probably think about advertising that's been targeted to you because of, look at your YouTube adverts. If you're a partner, you put them up there, you put your video up there, and they tailor the adverts to what you're talking about very, very cleverly. So some people have got it. Facebook probably does exactly the same things, and you can get people, coming to you because of what things that you're talking about, etc. So there's a lot of business opportunities here. I don't doubt that, and the best businesses, the most creative and forward-thinking businesses, are probably the ones that are going to come out of this the best way, and the ones that adapt as well, the ones that get it as well, that realise that there's a sea change here. You can't just, as a business, set up a website or use your existing website and try and get business from it. You've got to think about it in a different way. You've got to immerse yourself in it, go into it wholeheartedly, think about it, and don't just sort of come in at the edges, you know, like some people like, and you can probably have seen examples where they don't realise they're just doing it because it's a thing that they feel they ought to do. They ought to have a website, they ought to have a Twitter feed, and they don't use it the same way. Don't realise that there's a two-way process in this, exactly what we do here with the videos. You interact with each other, with the comments, with video responses, anything like that, and the friendships that you make them because of the interaction between the two of you. The same thing happens with businesses, that whole word of mouth things. If you get a good, there's that whole story about, you know, the one person, if you annoy someone, they will tell 10 people. If it's a good experience, they will only tell 5 or something like that. But if you work on that and you actually see what's going on, you react to what's being said on Twitter or on YouTube or whatever, and you purposely go to that person and make things better, then the word of mouth on YouTube, on the social internet, the social media sites generally, well, we've seen the way that videos go viral. That whole process once again can work by the word of mouth. You look at a great example in that particular book was the way that Diet Coke and Mentos idea came off. Some scientists were playing around and found out that Diet Coke, rather than most other soft drinks that there were around, was the one that worked best with Mentos for some reason. Now, Coke, if they'd have wanted to, Diet Coke, they could have squashed that because it doesn't look good, because it makes you think, well, what's going on in your stomach? If you think, you know, if you're putting Diet Coke and then eating Mentos or something. But they decided to take it a different way. They decided to embrace it. Actually signed up the 2 scientists who thought about it. The guys that were in the video that you probably see with all the fountains and that, they actually signed them up and paid for that video to be made. And what a great marketing tool. They saw it, they got it, they changed it. Another great example was the Matt Harding videos with the dancing. When he first started doing that, he just started it was a bit of fun. Someone suggested, well, let's just do this silly little dance you do, Matt. And then it evolved from then. And then Stride Gum, the chewing gum company, got involved, and I thought, hang on a minute, this is quite a good little tool, this is. But what they did, instead of blasting everybody with Stride Gum, and I bet some of you are out there are thinking, Stride Gum, what's that got to do with Matt Harding? Because it was subtle advertising. Once again, they did it in a subtle way. They got you involved, and they just put little logos in here and there. They didn't blast it out, brought to you by Stride Gum in big letters. They made you watch the video, because the video is what sells the product. It might not sell too many, but you think how many views there have been of those Matt Harding videos now. If it had Stride Gum emblazoned all over them, I don't expect people would have looked at it in quite the same way. So there you go. That's the way that things are changing. But one of the things with the business, I wasn't going to talk about the business side of it, but it's just taken over because of those possibilities. But what frustrates me in a way is, apart from the fact that it all seems to be talked about and dealt with and written about, etc., in other parts of the world, apart from where I am, is the fact that it is that business side. They're not thinking about the social aspects. Exactly what I mentioned earlier on in the videos about the fact that we're interacting here, that the way that we could use this social media in the same ways that businesses are, but we could use it for ourselves. And I don't think people have grasped that. Maybe people haven't seen through the business side, because obviously what we're doing isn't making any money specifically, although it possibly could in some ways in the future. But businesses are looking at it for what they can sell, and that's fair enough. But that same way, that same word of mouth, that same way that people are doing things can be used and taken across to the way that we interact with people here, the way that we could change things, the way that we can, that word of mouth thing again, that we can influence people and networks that we've got here, could be a great force for good in lots of different ways. If you look at what happened with Iran and all the incidents, the protests that were going on there, how that got out, and the way that news and everything else is gathered now. One of the points in that book is about that we find that, you know, the news sort of finds us now. We don't really go looking for it, it just happens and we find out about it. All those news stories you found out about through Twitter or Facebook or something like that, rather than watching the news. The way things are changing phenomenally, and we could harness that in a social media way. I'm not sure how, but I know there's lots of possibilities out there for that type of thing. And if anybody's got any great ideas, I'd love to know, because as I said, one of those sort of subjects that fascinates me. We talk about social networking. I'd like to see more emphasis on the social and a bit less emphasis on the networking. People coming here for the right reasons, not people just coming onto social networking sites to make as many friends as they can and brag because they got X amount of subscribers or X amount of followers or X amount of friends on particular sites. That isn't what it's about. It's great to have all those friends, followers, viewers, etc., etc. But it's the quality that counts and not the quantity, and I think sometimes people miss that point. Some people who came here as individuals, they think more of it as a business. Yes, it can turn into a business. Yes, you can use these avenues, these sites to promote yourself. Of course you can, and if you want to do that, that's absolutely fine. I do it in a way myself, I suppose, by putting my videos out there and talking about myself. I am promoting myself, whether I think about that particularly or not. Obviously some other people take it to a different level and exploit it as well, and I don't really have a problem with that. If that's what they want to do and they're open and honest about it, that's absolutely fine, as long as you don't trample on me in the process. But really what it's about for me, and what it's always been about, or certainly since I've realised what it's about, is about the social side, about the interaction, about having conversations with people all over the world. I'll give you a great example of what happened to me the other day. I found out about a new application for the iPhone and iPod Touch, something called Ping, and I'm not advertising them, but it's it's something that I just happened to read about on one of those Twitter feeds that link to an article, etc., etc., based in America, I believe. And this particular application can only be used by iPhone or iPod Touch users, and it only works with people who've got the application as well. But you can use it a bit like Skype, but for sort of instant messaging, I suppose, and you can use it anywhere in the world. The first conversation I had with that, I was sitting on my sofa watching the TV with my wife, and ping, it came up, and it was someone in Israel. It was Ran over there in Israel. Had a quick conversation with him. My wife said, "What's that then?" I said, "I'm talking to someone in Israel." And that really makes you think. Made her think, what? And later on in the evening, I had a conversation with Billy over there in Alabama, in America. Now that to me is mind-blowing. I can do that for free, because that's the other point of that. It's absolutely free. Just think of the potential for something like that. You can send a message to someone 12,000 miles away, halfway across the world, for absolutely nothing, providing you've got that little application there. So you think of the possibilities of that. Yes, they might make money out of it, but I don't have a problem with that if they're helping us explore and get to know each other. Breaking down boundaries of age, sex, everything, you know, all those colour, creed, race, and all those type of things which we're doing. That's the force for good, I think. I remember a video by Reneto years ago, and talking about this, and I think that's even more relevant now. If you think about the potential of what is here, if you really take it to its natural limits, people ought to be a bit wary of the power that is here with the social media. We're now making friends, and barriers and bonds, etc., are breaking down barriers across the world. That might change the world in the future. A bold statement to make, but if you think about it and you think about the implications, like I have done, you never know where this may take us. It's a big world out there, and this is a big sea change, I think, especially if you take it to its natural limits, and who knows what's going to come in the future. But for me, very interesting topic. That's a great book, and read the review as I said down there. Watch the video that was a link to it as well, to give you some idea. Maybe you haven't thought about it particularly. You just come on here, watch the videos and disappear. That's fine. But I find this quite fascinating. I find it quite interesting. The more you think about it, the more you think about the possibilities, especially if you think about what you've gained out of it already. That's what spurred me on, and what I know is to come in the future. I think that's a very exciting prospect, and me, I'm certainly looking forward to the future in social media. I wonder about you. Anyway, thanks for your time. I'll speak to you again soon. Goodbye.